off of drugs will reap large rewards in the future and save a lot of lives.
Lang plans to introduce a measure to override Browner's mandatory veto next week. The bill initially passed with overwhelmingly bipartisan support, but with the Republican governor and Democrats in the Illinois legislature already at an impasse over the state's budget, an override on the Heroin Crisis Act is far from a sure thing. David Shaper, NPR News, Chicago.
Let's follow up now on a detail of China's big stock market slide. Our colleague Frank Langford told us this week of a Chinese man who put his money in the market and kept it in the Shanghai market because the Communist Party newspapers told him it was a good idea. Turns out quite a lot of the action in the Shanghai market has been driven like this. The Beijing government encouraged risky investments. NPR's Jim Zaroli reports.
On the surface, the Chinese stock market looks and sounds something like the markets in New York or London or Tokyo, but it differs in some big ways. For one thing, China's 3 stock exchanges are small. They list only about 2,000 companies, and most of these are politically connected. Scott Kennedy directs the China Business Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies.
This is simply a way for companies to raise money, and oftentimes companies that are listed because they're state-owned or they're privileged private companies.
Kennedy says the Beijing government also bars most foreigners from investing in the stock market, except for a small group of designated institutional investors. That's because the government likes to keep the market stable, and it can't do that if too many foreigners are buying and selling big blocks of shares. So about 80% of stock market investors are individual Chinese, and they buy a particular stock because they think the company is favored by the government.
Everybody, whether they're institutional investors or households, basically look for policy cues from the government to decide where to put their money.
This tends to make the Chinese stock market disconnected from the broader economy. Stock prices can rise when growth is falling, or vice versa. Last year, the government was worried that real estate prices were rising too far too fast and that a bubble was forming, so it began to encourage people to take their money out of housing and invest it in stocks instead. The government-controlled TV channel, CCTV, was filled with stories about the money to be made in stocks.
Shares on this exchange have surged 55% this year, becoming the world's best-performing stock market.
The government even allowed investors to buy shares on margin, a risky form of investment that can be very profitable and can also magnify losses. When prices began to fall this year, says Harvard economist Ken Rogoff, Beijing made some clumsy attempts to intervene.
They've done things like tell reporters